Good morning and welcome to our final panel from Los Angeles. I wanted to take this moment to thank everybody that has participated and helped curate this entire program. We are absolutely blessed to have had such wonderful speakers and our moderators that have been amazing in putting this together at short notice. So first and foremost, let me turn around and have various people introduce themselves, starting with Rebecca Huang.
Thank you so much. This has been such a blast and fun exercise to go through amazing, mind-blowing, thought-provoking conversations during these last 3 days. My name is Rebecca Huang. I was born in Korea, raised in Argentina, engineer by training. And my second chapter in life was as an entrepreneur. So I went to MIT, Stanford, then created my first venture-backed company called YouNoodle, backed by Peter Thiel, Max Levchin. And in 2014, I became an investor. I created my first VC firm, Rivet Ventures, which was conformed by 4 female investors. And we provided capital to companies that were investing in female products, so female needs, pain points, and female consumers as the main target demographic. Then I created Cali Ventures, which is a VC fund that runs in Latin America. We invest in early stage companies and we're technology agnostic. And I also have an academic side to my career. I teach at Stanford University. I'm also the professor of practice and the senior director of the Mastering Center for Family Business and Global Entrepreneurship at Thunderbird School of Global Management. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much. Fernando, if you would be so kind as to actually give your whole introduction, because we get snippets of your introduction from here and there. It would be great to learn a little bit more about you.
Sure. I do want to also commend you for putting this, helping us put this together and inviting the whole panel here and the speakers as well. It's been quite insightful. I split my time between making hit records with pop stars and working in academia and with global leaders as well on teaching creativity as a skill. And so I spent my early part of my career as a I would say teenager making dance music and pop music, and that gave me a unique perspective, in my opinion, unique perspective to look at the world through the lens of musicality. And through musicality and understanding the origins of where this universal language of music came from, it gave me a context to view the world as interconnected, and specifically interconnected as we are all symbiotic and interrelated. And with that came this anthropomorphic meaning of music. For me, represented family. It represented love. It represented companionship. It represented so much. And I knew there was more that I wanted to do beyond just essentially making music. And so I ventured off and exploring different avenues of expression, self-expression. And my litmus towards everything I did was instinctually and intuitively, does it make me feel as connected as playing an instrument or writing a song? And it's through that process I discovered that I've been a narrator and an author of meaning for my life consistently. And then I realized, well, there seems to be a deficit of meaning and purpose, as Amy Cuddy has postulated now and is at the forefront of most conversations in business, that what creatives do every day is they're essentially writing their meaning, and in writing their meaning through their art, they're giving, passing and allowing people of different disciplines to inherit this meaning, right? And connecting to this meaning through song, painting, photography, acting, and every typical art expression. And so this is where I started drawing lines between meaning, self-identity, self-authoring, cognitive authoring. And I realized that I still lacked the vocabulary to articulate what creatives do. So I spent the past 10 years researching multiple disciplines in order to get a grasp of how to describe what I really do every day, right? And so that is creativity. And so I built a company called Garibay Institute and Center, in which we educate global leaders and world-class performers how to think of themselves as creative, and also give them the tools to leverage creativity as a daily practice, right? To think and to synthesize and make connections with seemingly unrelated disciplines or ways of thought, looking at positive deviance, looking at obtruse ideas, looking at even contrarianness as a beacon and a launch pad for diverse thought, right? So we also look at what is considered, neurocognitive diversity as strengths and reframing those as strengths. So we work with all types of leaders, and this a bit of where I came from, what I'm really fascinated by, how I took what I'm fascinated by and created a now new venture around that, and to help to uplift a creative class into a place of thought leadership and hopefully reframe the economics of the creative class in the process.
Amazing. I want to quickly just introduce our solo intern for the project because he has to go back to school. He has been great with us in the sense of being here most days at 3:30ish and in the morning, and then going to school. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jay. Jay, if you'll say a few words about yourself, where you go to school, what your ambitions are.
Okay. I'm Jay Singh. I did, kind of the back end of the, Zoom work here. So sorry if you didn't get in.
No apologies needed.
But yeah, so I go to Crespi, a junior. I'm kind of just looking into going into something in the business field. So I think I want to get an undergrad in engineering and then go for an MBA sometime down the line. And then, yeah, that's.
So look at the times where we're in, though. Look, so we're obviously in different generations across the room, right? Yeah, here we are interdependent on a high school junior. Right? To run the tech. It's kind of like a litmus to like what this whole and all these panels are essentially about, right? Yeah. Like incumbent generations versus legacy generations, right? And what we can learn from each other, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, I think going to kind of the career that he just talked about and saying, I want an engineering degree, and then I want to go into business, even though my objective is to go into business. And I think it's as we see from a lot of successful people, Rebecca included, that engineering does help in the business side of it because it creates structure in business thought. But at the same time, going back to what we've been talking about is the creativity side, and what Garibay Institute is doing is taking that creative side and elevating that into its own being, because we tend to think of creatives as non-business.
Yeah, totally.
And so I think, so I think that, this is amazing to see that. And with that, Jay, I think you should go to school. So we don't want you to be late.
Brought something that's really interesting out to light. Usually you have these like bits of wisdom in normal conversation that I like, oh my God, it's brilliant. So think about the future of education. I want to get to the introduction to continue, but this is really an important pause because Jay, you bring this kind of like you don't see kids in these panels, right? Well, specifically Jay's not a kid, but like younger generation. Think about future of education, right? So like Jordan Peterson postulates, 5 years from now, the university institutions are gonna be admonished, right? There's gonna be a deficit in students, et cetera, et cetera. But yet the Navy SEALs and the conversation we had earlier with Marine taught us, and we've framed it in a very unique way and modern way and novel way, that structure is key, right, to building resilience, right? That's really interesting, right? So we look at the future value prop of a higher level institution, academic specifically, and maybe it's like you get a law degree, not so much to practice law, because as we know, AI is now very quickly outperforming traditional passive logic, right? But what if it is structure that we're looking at? What if it is as the higher learning that the human will require, right, to evolve alongside AI.
And going back to structure, we should go on with introductions.
Yes.
But before we do that, let's have Jay go to school. So Jay, thank you very much for all of your work.
Thank you, Jay.
You did an amazing job of keeping us all lined up and going. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we can have Sam talk a little bit about, we'll switch the side of the room.
Sure. Thank you, Anand. And this has been a wonderful experience. I feel like I've learned so much from all the various panels. My background, I grew up just with a love of mathematics. I started computational mathematics and really just dialed in my focus. I just love the simplicity and that there's always one right answer, no matter how you get there. It always sort of converges in that way. However, I'm somewhat of an autodidact, so I was pretty far ahead, took an economics course, fell in love with that as well, took some programming for mathematics, fell in love with that as well. And eventually ended up double majoring, went on to applied economics at UCLA for a master's degree, and began to realize that this convergence of economics, which was originally created as a study of morality. The person who created economics was trying to put equations to morality. So it's really just a trying to formalize how we all act in this world. So you combine that with the big data aspect and then the amount of computing we have access to, and really start to build and develop models for this world. So I began, moving away from taking actions myself and building robots to do actions that could do better for me. So this is in automation and so forth. This was seen at UCLA. I got hired out of there to be a researcher for the former chief economist of Soros Fund. He ended up founding a master's called the Master of Quantitative Economics at UCLA. Hired me there, which was a huge experiment, right? To hire me quite young to develop curriculum, right? So I developed 3 series of courses that first year, and they were a huge success. They were largely focused on technical skill, away from theory. So, right, what Fernando always likes to say, trying to create a environment where the people who come in are not the same people who go out. And that's so common inside of academia where, the only real difference people see leaving a lot of classes is maybe increased obedience, right? Rather than increased intelligence. Like the first day on almost any job, you're using Google Suite, and that's not touched on any class that I've ever seen inside of higher education. So that was a huge success. I've gone on to create 8 courses. All of them are deep tech focused. Right now I'm teaching applied machine learning. I taught the first blockchain course in UCLA economics department, first cloud computing course. And then in this last year, I've sort of fell into organizing events. I've thrown some of the largest tech events inside of LA, and that's culminating later in April with the blockchain accelerator we're doing with the UCLA Business School. So that's sort of, my background there.
That's amazing. Anika, tell us a little bit about yourself, because we've talked a little bit about creativeness and about that need, and I would consider you a pure creative. So here we go. So let's take it from there.
Funny enough, not quite pure, but I did start out on the other side. I was born in former East Germany, behind the wall, and I studied theater directing and theater history as my undergrad in the University of Bayreuth in Bavaria. Then received a Fulbright scholarship that got me across the pond to the United States, studied musical theater directing at Indiana University, and did my master's in film directing and film writing at Savannah College of Art and Design. I'm an artist by trade, worked a lot with technology. I know my way around cameras, lenses, can build them, can rebuild them, can most likely fix them, and have worked on film sets since I graduated. I've worked with some of the biggest actors, some of the biggest directors. Hopefully I get to do some of that more. When I came to Los Angeles, I, as a writer and director by trade, did every side job in the business, literally anything, and worked my way from set to set. I've worked in tech and business as well. I got hired to work for the Human Health Organization under John and James Cameron, and worked my way up to become VP of production. So I have worked in business as well. And now I'm a writer-director at Paradigm and House Fire Management. I write stories that are genre agnostic, that focus on female-led, socially conscious stories. A lot of them can touch on controversial topics, not all of them do. I write anything from young adult novels that deal with suicide in a humorous way to journalist pieces that are based on true stories where I often writes. So that's my world. I do deal with stories that are tech focused as well. I'm currently working on one that includes the metaverse quite heavily. Yeah, that's me.
Wonderful. You know, we'll come back to some of the things you said. You were also academically quite gifted. So you came to the US on a scholarship. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yes, I was the only art Fulbright recipient that year. So that week when they got all the Fulbright students together, they collected us in this beautiful room, and next to me was a chemist. On the other side was a physicist. And I opened my mouth and I'm like, oh, this is like getting the Nobel Peace Prize for a comic book. Oh, I don't belong here. So I had this imposter syndrome, and I still do, to be fairly honest. When I'm in a room with people that really know what they're doing, I'm like, oh, I think differently, I think around corners. And sometimes that's a really great thing to be able to do, because I can solve problems very differently. And sometimes I don't quite see the straight line through. But yeah, that's...
Yep. Lastly, but and saving the best for last, I want to introduce somebody very special, Anita Seelig. Anita is a co-creator for Digital Davos, along with her husband, Carl. I wanted to thank her for being so patient with us, and for every morning coming here with coffee and baked goods to make sure that we continued this program half awake. So with that, Anita, if you would just give a brief introduction about yourself, we'd love to learn a lot more about you.
Hi, I'm Anita Seelig. I'll try to make this short. A little bit about my background. I grew up in Minnesota with a lovely family. I was the youngest of 6 children. And eventually, as I was old enough, moved myself to Hawaii, where I became interested in the fashion industry. And I started that at a very late age, but I was still fortunate enough to be able to get myself through that, and was able to travel a lot. That's my passion, and this is why I loved that so much. I traveled a lot in Asia and Europe. I eventually ended up moving to Milan, where I lived for 8 years, and I changed my hat within the fashion industry and started my own fashion line, Anita Erickson Couture. And luckily, they were interested enough to use my things in a lot of editorials, including Elle and Marie Claire, 2 of the biggest ones. And then I moved over here to Los Angeles, and along with my husband, opened up a boutique on Rodeo Drive. And we dressed a lot of A-list celebrities for red carpet events, and eventually merged into the telecom industry as my husband and I together co-created the patent for the ringback tone replacement technology. And once we acquired the patent, we decided to just concentrate on that. We had our own telecom called Ring Plus, which was dubbed the fastest growing telecom in the industry. And now I am here. And I've been listening to these panels, which were very interesting, very insightful. And I want to thank all of the speakers out there, if you're listening, and everybody who's listening throughout the world. I hope that you are all having a wonderful time, whatever it is, day or evening, or maybe you're about to go to sleep. So I just want to thank everybody. It's been so lovely here. And thank you, all of you here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Anita. You know, a vision can just stay an idea, and then a vision can become an action, which will lead to something brilliant in the world. You and Carl, along with Doug and Rich, created Digital Davos as a medium for people to be able to express what I would say thought, but structured more towards business, about taking subjects as diverse as immigration and creativity and merging that into business. We've been fortunate enough to be helpful along the way. in building out that vision. And I think we will look forward to continuing that. But just to kind of give you an idea of the backstage chaos that we go through, I wanted to, just say that, Sam, we've got to add another panel at 8:30.
Yes.
So if you could do that right now, that will be a surprise panel. And the surprise panel is we will be blessed to have with us David Hasselhoff, who, of course, most of us in the world know from Knight Rider. Sam, if you do it right here, that'd be terrific, because we want people to see how chaos emerges into creativity, right? Amongst us, we discussed and said, what is the relevance of David Hasselhoff, and why does he play such a role in digital Davos? And what we came up collectively is to say, here's a person who was, in our minds, one of the first people for several generations to have a smartwatch, which he used to talk to his car, a car that drove itself. And now here we are in a future where this exists. And this is a person who was extremely influential in Germany, and especially during the fall of the Berlin Wall, performed there. And was there. So and ushered in what we would consider a era of peace in Europe. And yet again, we're back to the threat of war in Europe, of open war within Western Europe, which is starting from the Ukraine and moving inwards. So we thought it would be a relevant thing to do. And we were fortunate enough for him to confirm it last minute for us. And but before we go any further into that, so that'll be the next panel. So even though we thought this would be our wrap-up panel, we're going to add another surprise panel. And of course, Jay is going to, of course, be saying, I shouldn't have gone to school, because he really wanted to meet David Hasselhoff, because to him, Knight Rider was an amazing thing, along with Baywatch and with other things as well, but that the Hoff has done, as he's so well known. But before we do that, I wanted to kind of give you a little idea about the studio. So this is the Garraby Institute's private studio. And we were fortunate enough and grateful that Fernando allowed us to host ourselves here. It has genuinely sparked creativity among all of us. Being together, looking at panels, going through some of the backstage drama that's involved in putting this together, panelists not coming on, panelists wanting to be added at the last minute, for which we apologize for anybody that's listening, that obviously we had a request from hundreds of people, both to participate in our Swiss panels as well as the LA panels. And of course, we are not able to accommodate everyone at this time, because certainly just we don't have that much time. But coming back now to something we started, which is the discussion on creativity, the discussion on multidisciplinary learning, the discussion about how everything so unrelated is actually all part of our decision-making systems. We learned today that Sam grew up on a bee farm, on an area where he had bees. He actually, they had bees as well, I wouldn't call them pets, but Sam does. Did that help shape him? Did that help shape him into being the human being that he is today? So I'm going to turn that back up to Rebecca and say, Rebecca, what do you think? You just went through a panel that talked about bees, and I thought it was tremendously interesting.
So I could choose to repeat the conversation that was going on backstage. However, I will let the more controversial topics to become movies, film stories. Anika will be in charge of that. I don't think I'll do justice. But Michael Stern, one of the panelists from our panel on these, Charles Dickinson, the Marines, as well as cardiology, just shared a quote from Dickens, which I think is so perfect for this, for us, and for the panels we had during the 3 days. It's a quote from Bleak House. He says, what connection can there be between characters? What connection can there have been between many people in the innumerable histories of this world who, from opposite sides of great gulfs, have nevertheless been very curiously brought together, right? And when you do that, and we brought this organizing committee together, we brought all of the panelists who are in so many disparate parts of the world, magic happens. And I want to go back to the theme of Davos this year, which is cooperation in a fragmented world. And that's the theme for all of these conversations between leaders. And I go back to cooperation does not happen without connection. And to me, the overarching theme of all of our discussions has been about establishing these connections, connections between people, between topics, solutions to problems, connection at the human level, because with technology, maybe we will lose some of that human touch and connection. And so what I bring back home after this couple of days is a very deep desire to intense and additional connections in my life, deepening these connections that we formed here, the bonds, and hopefully also more connection with my pillow, because there has not been any sleep in the last 3 days. And I do want to connect with my health and self-care as well. But thank you for this amazing.
So Fernando, take that on, because I think you have a lot to add to this conversation.
Well, I mean, so one is thank you for the opportunity to host this amazing group. This allowed me to pressure test an idea I had, right? Could I build a space in which inspires creativity? And the answer is yes. So when I looked at why white, right? Everyone, first thing they ask, my whole space is, I call negative space. It's devoid of color, right? But yet it's not, because white contains pretty much the full spectrum of color as our limited bandwidth can understand. So this pressure testing, it also, if you think about pressure testing and bench testing something, and Marines have taught us this as well, right? It's amazing takeaway for me is, if you truly want to know who a person really is, right? Don't judge the individual when he's fully rested, right? Judge him or her or they when they're exhausted and hungry and sleep deprived, because then you will know the true nature of an individual. Isn't that interesting? So most of us haven't said, so people don't know that we're up at the West Coast time. So we 2 in the morning. So, and then we're fully intellectually cognitive, at least to the best of our ability, right? And caffeinated, of course. But that says a lot about everyone in this room, right? It's like, it's, wow. It's, you know, and then founders always say, if you can build a business around the people that you want to hang out with, it's a pretty good litmus that you'll have a good time and enjoy it, right? And your journey and meaning will evolve alongside that, right? So that's what I learned from this, well, reinforced, I should say, right? Is my instinct and intuition was right in that this is a group that I've learned through pressure testing that I want to hang out with and continue this discourse and grow it.
We want to hang out with you too.
Yes, absolutely. Anita, what, you know, as somebody who patiently sat and watched us, who guided us, and who, you know, frankly, co-created this whole platform, did you envision that this would be an outcome of multidisciplinary thought, of bringing all of this together?
Well, it became totally successful. There were bumps, but it wasn't obvious to most of the people. I don't think anybody noticed anything going.
Yeah, no, absolutely
wrong. Sometimes it's technology. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, the outcome is I'm very happy with it, and I want to thank you, Anand, for curating this.
Oh, no.
It was an awesome outcome.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Very grateful for that. And,
you know, I wanted to kind of turn it over to Sam and say, Sam, you know, one of the panels you did today, and I have to say that it had some of the best speakers in the world contributing, and in a 30-minute time frame provided more information that I have ever collectively received about a subject matter. So talk to me a little bit about how your thought process was, and did you expect that outcome from this panel? And talk a little bit about the panelists.
Yeah, so the panel you're talking about is the crypto winter one. And what I thought was interesting is throughout all of these panels, it seemed like whether it was an IP panel, a legal panel, whatever it is, a good majority of them would converge on certain topics. It would converge on AI, it would converge on crypto, it would converge on blockchain. It just shows how, you know, these things, these technologies are so obviously the next step of the future for everything we see. So even though we're inside of what they call crypto winter, right, which is asset prices are down. That's all it is, right? Asset prices are down. You go to the conferences, you meet the builders, you see that there is just as much energy, enthusiasm going on, regardless of what the corresponding asset price is. So the three panelists we had on there was Ben Tsai, founder of Wave Financial, Michael Turpin, who was the original marketer for Ethereum. And then we had Charlie Shrem, who was one of the first 100 investors in Bitcoin. He has logs of himself talking to Satoshi Nakamoto, right, the inventor of Bitcoin, before it went dark, before he went dark, talking and discussing with him. And, to so many people, these are three idols, right, inside of the industry. But what was so interesting is I got a text from one of them right after saying, oh my gosh, I'd love to connect to the other panelists, right? So even within, the top pedestal here, these people who seem so unreachable to other people, they're unreachable to each other. Yep. You know what I mean? And I think that's really what Digital Davos is about. We brought together some panels beyond that one that were just so multidisciplinary, so diverse in opinions that it's like these people never would have had a discussion. Absolutely. It's like, I can't think of a better analogy that, but like a zoo. It's like you would never see a giraffe. I know. See, I was trying to think of something that doesn't have a bad connotation.
It was a happy place.
But just in the way that you would never see these species in the same place. Yeah. You know what I mean? You would never see these species in the same place. So that's, I really thought there was beauty in that message I received after saying, hey, I would love to see him. And it also gives a case for why in-person is so important. Those two people are going to meet at the event tonight we're housing in Los Angeles. So so the hybrid is the model.
Yeah. So taking the talking a little bit about an event for all of those that were panelists and for all of our moderators, co-creators, and anybody that has had an influence on us. We have invited a Digital Davos closing party tonight. And if you haven't received your invite, please reach out to us. And if you're interested in attending as an audience member or somebody that was influenced by this program, certainly do reach out to us. We'll try our best to add you in. Last question I wanted to kind of pose before we need to get ready for our surprise panel is to Anika. Anika, for the past couple of years has been instrumental in organizing, following up every panel, making sure that their speakers are getting on. What are the technical problems that need to be resolved? And has single-handedly handled some of our toughest crisis moments, I would say to you. And Anika, firstly, I wanted to thank you about that. The second side of it is that while it was stressful, what did you learn?
What did I learn? So it actually mirrors the experience of doing a movie, to be super honest, right? I had my own radio show for a couple of years as a teenager, which was similar to this experience because you do research and problem solving on the spot with a topic that's given to you when news happens. And so when you have a panel that's prepared, and with this, some of it happened last minute, and you have people all over the world, all the times are different, people communicate in different ways, on different channels, so you have to organize all different channels and sort of funnel them at the same time when you're also moderating your own panels. I've learned to try to please everybody, know that I can't. Also, not single-handedly. We've had a lot of help. Sam has been instrumental at doing a lot of the tech side and figuring things out from the tech side, also in real time, while also moderating and doing his research in real time, which is bananas, professional language, bananas. But I've learned to probably let things go a little quicker.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that as a collective here, and as a collective in Switzerland, we learn every year that at the end of this, even though we're exhausted, we feel exhilarated because we have absorb so much knowledge in such a small time frame. And we as individuals, as moderators, as hosts, as support, all become better people for doing this. So I think that our only hope is that our audience around the world has been able to learn something, has been able to see that there are human beings behind issues, that issues are not esoteric things that exist in some other space, that issues involve people. So before you kind of look at any issue, understand that there are people in real life that are either influenced by it or are working hard to move the needle forward. Sam's example for crypto, certainly yes. Crypto winter, yes, all of that stuff. But you know, somebody on a panel said, yeah, great, you know, that's great language. But if you look at crypto and where it started, and you know, where it was 2 years ago, 5 years ago, and after this crypto winter, we're still ahead of that. So we've still seen a net gain in crypto. So these are all things that I think have been instrumental in kind of bringing it forward through experts, through global thought leaders, through people that want to change and that are bringing change into the world. And I think that that's have been our major focus from the get-go in saying what change needs to be done. We all know at an intellectual level, but who is actually doing it and how? What is the path forward? And that has been the focus of Digital Davos. And in that, I hope that everyone has been able to enjoy these sessions. We certainly look forward to doing more of them. And so from LA, with everybody's permission, I would just want everyone to say a brief goodbye and look forward to seeing you at our next sessions.
Oh, thank you so much. So maybe I'll start with my departing words. I came into this thinking, you know, this is 2023. We have a lot of negativity, a lot of gloomy thoughts happening in the world with the recession, with the macro trends that we're seeing. And I was wondering, what is the message of hope, right? And optimism that I'm taking away from this. To me, is that I rediscovered that I still do care. I have a lot of curiosity. The sparks of the nuggets of wisdom, you know, the questions really provoked a reaction in me where I renewed my love for curiosity, childhood wonder, right? And when you have that, there's always hope and optimism. So that's my final words for today.
I agree with that wholly. You know, we are, you know, especially the finance world, the entrepreneur world, the global leadership communities are always looking for this leadership advantage, right? Like, what can we get from, what's the next ethos of thought that we can learn from and or adopt or help us write our mission journey or expression of our natural essence, right? And I think one of the most eye-opening moments was, Anand, when you said, hey, this should be fun, right? It's like, yeah, no kidding, right? Like, of course it should be fun. Like, that's so obvious, but I think it's equally not enough. We don't hear that, right? And it goes back to this idea of neoteny, right? Neoteny in the sense of having a childlike mind. And this is so important. And that was the hybridity version of this that we got to really appreciate here collectively, is that we had fun doing this, even though we're retired. But that was my reaffirmation of neoteny as a skill and a superpower.
Anika, your part thoughts?
I really love getting inspired by topics, some of which I know very, very little about. I know very little about crypto. I know very little about that world, blockchain, and it's really cool to learn. And that goes for most of the panels. I love listening to them. I'll listen to them more than twice, 3 times, just because there's so much in there. And it'll very likely inspire my work as a writer, as a filmmaker. And I'll have a lot more people to tap from. I'm not sorry ahead of time, because I will ask you a ton of questions. And that'll be a lot of fun for me in the future.
Sam?
Anita.
Oh, I'm going to have Anita close that.
Oh, okay.
So Sam, you.
Yeah, I am completely inspired, and I see this growing into a annual global thing, right? This digital Davos, all the benefits we talked about of having this hybridity to a where we can access people all over the world for panels like this. I am just invigorated to see this continue month after month and then year after year.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think it certainly is a lot of work, and it certainly is some coordination and some amount of thought put into this. But I think that it all comes down to the willingness of everybody to want to create meaningful content that can hopefully influence those that are looking based on expertise, not necessarily on opinion or a single opinion, but based on controversial opinions as well. We had a question, at some point in saying, do we do activism? And the answer is no, we don't do activism, because we are not looking to bring anything. We want to create positive change. So activism can also be positive. And so Anika or Jay or people from younger generations and Sam, when we are asked and saying, is it okay to ask a question on this? The answer is, of course it is. But it's not about fleshing out problems. It's about fleshing out solutions for the next side of it, of saying, okay, we have issues and we have global issues about a lot of different things. But how do we make that issue positive? How do we take it forward? And most importantly, from our perspective, is to say, is that solution bankable, financeable, sustainable, making the right impact, and including everyone? So that's kind of been our focus for the LA hub, and as well as in Switzerland. Anita, I'd love for you to close this out for us, and we've got to get ready for the Hof.
I hope everybody out there enjoyed this as much as I did and learned as much as I did. I'm very grateful that we are able now to access so many other people because of this remote event, which came about because of the pandemic. But it's something that we're going to continue doing now. It's another piece of our digital.
Yeah, and for those of you that go back to our videos from 2 years ago and 1 year ago, we'll see lots of pauses and lots of technical things that we learned along the way, because we not only did we learn technology, but our panelists learned how to be part of a panel remotely. So it's been a chaotic journey, and as you can see, we're still not done. We still have issues getting panelists on, and we still have technical issues. But I think that in coming to the theme of the thing, technology is leading this all forward. Technology is bringing us all together. Technology is making content like this relevant, because we can distribute this around the world, and we can have people participate from all around the world. And I think that with that, I'd like to thank everybody again, and we will get ready for our last panel. So stay tuned as we interview the Hof.